Sarah Jenks, I want to welcome you to Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? You are a second time guest. I think one of our
I'm
only
so
guests
honored.
that's been on twice. It's
Really?
you and Blue. I think
Oh
that's
my
it.
God, Emily, I'm so honored.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
look, I mean,
you.
you're brilliant and our
Oh,
audience loves you. And I can't think of anyone that I'd rather jam on this topic of dancing with our darkness, like turning the perceived shit, the perceived hardness into alchemical gold. And by the way, like that is the definition of alchemy. It's like the quote unquote magical process of transmuting one thing into another. And I
exactly.
think that right now in this day and age, it's so easy to get weighted down, to get caught up in the news cycle with the speed of change, with the real life atrocities that are happening
hmm
with war and the changes of AI and economic struggles and Gaza and the Middle East and and our food. I mean, you name it. Like there's
hmm
every day there will be another tragedy and things are likely not going to slow down.
Yeah.
So right now we have an option. We have options. We could choose to keep suffering. Like we could
Mhm.
choose to keep putting our attention on the weeds. We could choose to make ourselves miserable. We could choose to hold on to the old ways of existing. We could also choose love and light and bypassing and just putting our attention on doing ketamine all day or meditating all day or just pleasure practices all day.
Mhm.
Or there's this third path, this like real middle way, and not the Buddhist middle way, but I think the middle way that you and I have really dedicated both of our lives and careers to, which is like bravely go, not only going into the darkness, but fucking dancing with the darkness
Yeah.
and alchemizing that darkness into gold, turning that pain not only into pleasure, but into the very thing that will fuel your dreams. And I would argue the thing that will fuel and birth the new earth, the
Mm.
new reality that our hearts know is possible. So talk to me, like what has been your journey with dancing with your darkness? Like either from your life or most recently,
Mhm.
like what is inspiring you to want to talk about dancing with your darkness right now?
Well, it's a great question. So I'd say that there's two things that I think people are being faced with right now that often feel um, like separate, but I think are actually the same thing. So we have all of this internal stuff that we're dealing with. And then we also have all of this external stuff that we're
Mm,
dealing with. And I think what can happen is people either say, my internal stuff doesn't matter because there's so many terrible and hard things happening in the world. Or they'll say, I can't handle what's happening in the world because of everything that's happening with me. And I just need to work harder to get better and stronger inside me in here so that maybe someday I can meet what's happening in the world. Or
wow.
we just think like it's too much. What's happening out there is too much. So I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to numb out so I can
Yeah.
focus in here. And in the sacred feminine, one of our practices is thinking about how we are often the micro of the macro.
Hmm.
And I think something that can happen to that sometimes is like it gives us permission to only work on the micro and assume that if we're working on the micro, maybe the macro is just like happening on its own. My opinion is that we get to look at and work in both simultaneously, and that we're actually like meant to do that. And we're all being called to do that in this moment on the planet right now. And so I think it's so important for us to build our capacity to be with what's happening in the micro, our inner darkness, the stuff that is happening in our life, and also fully being with the macro and the darkness that's happening on the planet. And I speak to it this way because I was totally the one who was caught in thinking that I really just needed to focus inside in the macro first, and that like maybe somehow that was doing something to the macro.
Well, I would argue that like it's doing something, right? It might not be the whole game, but yes, you
Right.
healing yourself, you are part of the collective. And so yes, it is doing something.
And I believe that when we can actually take our energy and our capacity, and for a lot of us, our privilege, and like move with it and
Mhm.
make an offering, be in collective care, think about how to actually repair the world. There's something that is so important about that. And that can be with our voice, that can be with art, that can be with donation, that can be with giving. But I think it starts with, can we be with the darkness in here and out here? Because when we do that, it opens something up in us that is so incredibly powerful.
The image that's coming up as you say that is like the service dogs in the airport who have their little vest on and they're like, I'm being of service. And they like feel so happy and so proud of themselves. And you can tell they're like, I'm useful. Like I am doing the thing that my soul came here to do. I am serving my human. And like, we're just animals, right? We're just like complicated house plants. Like give us some water, give us some sunshine, but also give us some purpose. Like when we feel like our gifts are being used towards creating a more beautiful earth, it makes us feel better on the micro and the macro.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's like I've been to many, I know so many people who are activists or are working in nonprofits and they themselves are miserable. They themselves are suffering. They themselves are stressed and not meditating and not eating well and like fighting this martyr fight. And that's not helping. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like everything has its poles. Yeah. Similarly, you could have like, the rich billionaire who's just like paying hundreds of thousands of dollars on like plasmapheresis and like putting UV light up its butthole and like, and it's like, how much biohacking do we need before you're going to actually like donate some money to kids who don't have food?
It's a decision, not like a biohacking threshold.
Wait, what do you mean?
So true. Well, it's like, I think you named the things like how much biohacking do we need before we can actually help people? Mm-hmm. And so it's like, can we like meet in the balance of it from the very beginning? Like, can we hold the micro and the macro at the exact same time and know that they're interrelated?
Yeah.
Right. That, it's like, it's the infinity loop where the two, come together as opposed to like a journey.
Yeah, I love that. The infinity loop, which feels very feminine. And also what's coming to mind is the mycelial network. When we did our opening prayer, you called in like the spirit of the compost, like the spirit of what the mushrooms do when they, my friend Ali says like mushrooms eat death for breakfast. Yeah. Like they eat death and turn it into life. And that process of that mycelial network, it feels like that's coming to mind as well, that none of us are meant to heal alone and none of us are meant to grieve alone, that as we heal, we can help others heal. And as we grieve, others can help us heal. And that we do this in this mycelial network together, which is so feminine as opposed to like the old way of doing things, which is like, well, I'm just going to do it alone.
Totally. It's so true.
And so can you share a moment in your life where something got composted, where you have turned the shit into gold, like where you've really been brave enough to dance with your darkness? Have you ever had a moment where nature just drops the exact message you need exactly when you need it? Maybe it's a reminder to slow down. Maybe it's a fresh perspective on something you've been stuck on, or just the perfect nudge to help you embody your highest self. Well, that is what I want to give you every single week, a dose of Ziva straight from my heart to yours. When you sign up for my emails, you're going to get first access to the downloads that are coming straight into my heart, access to science-backed tools to help you stress less and feel more alive. You're going to get a sneak peek into my personal practice and all the perks that we only share with our Ziva insiders. You're going to get podcast announcement and exclusive offers and invitation to our events before anyone else. And because I love a good thank you gift, if you sign up right now, you're going to get a special welcome gift just for signing up, and it's totally free. It just might be the very best thing you do for yourself today. So you can go to the link in the show notes or go to zivameditation.com/whythis to get a beautiful welcome gift and to receive these transmissions from my heart to yours every single week. So head to zivameditation.com/whythis, and I will see you in your inbox.
Yeah, well, we have a practice in my lineage, which is the 13 Moon Mystery School, about understanding the gift that comes from the wound. And so we do a lot of wound work in my lineage. It's like deeply uncomfortable, but I have found that it has transformed me in ways that I could never imagine. So the core wound that I've been working with in my training as a priestess in the 13 Moon Mystery School is the wound of wanting to be liked and wanting to be popular and wanting to be normal. And as I discovered that I was meant to be a priestess, which is like a super weird personal choice and career path, this wound got really kicked up for me. And so what happened leading up to my ordination, which was 3 years ago, was this like desperation to be liked by my friends, by my husband, by people on the internet, by all of my clients. And what then happened was people started really not liking me. And I just really thought, well, if I fake it enough, it's like, oh, that I must need to actually be more normal. I need to really, wear a better outfit and have a better Instagram strategy or be a better wife or be a better friend. It triggered all the parts of me that wanted to perform. And even though I was doing that and I had done that for years and I was like so good at faking it, Emily, like you have no idea.
Oh, I do.
Everything started falling apart. The business started falling apart. My marriage started falling apart. I was losing friends. It was just because it wasn't real, it wasn't true. I also believe that we enter these mystery schools with the divine, and the divine is always trying to teach us how to be our authentic selves. And I had to really look at all of the ways that I was faking it. Like on the eve of my ordination, supposed to be like pinnacle, like integrity with my work in the world. And I had to just really let it all go and be in the surrender of, and also like the shame of being stuck in these patterns of performing and then not letting the shame take me out, but instead like going into compassion for the pattern while also holding that I needed to shift it in order to be in integrity with my vows. And what's real is that this wound of needing to be liked is attached to a part of me, like deep, deep, deep down. I was actually talking about this today in my council group that I lead, where sometimes I have to do this visualization that like I'm literally like being descended into the sewers of the earth to find this part of me that just feels so deeply unlovable and just like super overweight and not smart and really awkward and just like fucks everything up. And it would make sense because I have this like archetype in me that I would do all of this like crazy backflip performance, publicly. But my work has just been to keep descending down and meeting this part of myself and looking at her from every angle and just sitting down there in the sewers with her, not trying to make her better, but just like looking at where am I trying to get love? Where am I trying to prove myself? Where am I showing up in performance? Where am I caught in the hustle? Where am I making it somebody else's responsibility to like make me feel good about who I am? And it's just like the pits, because when it's happening, you like don't notice it and you're really sure it's their fault. And but then you gotta go like down and find, just like find the parts of you that you never want to show to people.
Yeah, then what happens once you find them? Once you find the pieces that you thought were unlovable, the pieces hiding in the sewer, the pieces that certainly like
Yeah.
this is because of everyone else, then what do you do? Like, how do you dance with this darkness?
Yeah. So I find it really helpful to do this in a ceremonial ritual space because I believe that we have these sacred tools to help support us, right? So if we can set up an altar, light some candles, energy clear the space, set the intention that we're going into the darkness, ask for protections, we can call in the directions, and like set a timer for an hour. I will go down and just feel it. Just feel the shame. Just feel the betrayal. Feel the loneliness. Feel all the feelings that this unlovable part of me, this dark part, never wants to feel. which is why we usually enact the wound. So for me, it's performance and wanting to be liked. It's because I actually just don't want to feel all the feelings that I've been carrying around inside me, for God knows how long. And I have to, and I literally imagine myself like sitting there with her and just asking her, how do you feel? Tell me everything. And then I'm just crying, emoting, screaming, like you do so much of this work in your practice. It's just that how then can you use the body to express all of that darkness, all of that shame, all of that sadness, and really like let it out.
Mm.
And, this is the same practice I use when I am, with something that's happening on the planet, that is not directly related to me. And it's so easy to like turn it off or feel overwhelmed. But I find that we actually feel overwhelmed when we're not fully meeting it with our full presence and going all the way into it and making it a ceremony and just like letting the grief and the shame and the fear
The
and
rage and the outrage.
the rage and just like really being in it. Because when we can dance with it all the way, when we can be with it all the way, something happens. There's an alchemical process that happens in our bodies. I'm sure they have studied this. Maybe but it's like we must release. I think, we must release oxytocin after we have a full catharsis. And it gives us energy to then go do something about it. And you know what I mean? And so the thing with the sacred feminine is that her wisdom is embedded in the season of of cycles. And so this going into the darkness, it's sort of like this transition to fall to winter. And if we really let ourselves go all the way in and we activate the cycle, there is this like lifting that comes from it naturally anyway, just through the way our bodies work. And it blows my mind every time.
Oh, like it's so brilliant. Just nature's design is so brilliant. So a couple of
It's
things I
so
want
good.
to underscore and double click on, and just, yes, that science there is like just the science of crying. Like when you cry, everyone says like, oh, I'm going to break down, I'm going to lose
Mhm.
it. And every time I hear someone say that, I'm like, nothing breaks inside of you when you cry. You do
Mhm.
not lose anything except for toxins out of your
Yep.
eyeballs. And directly following that toxin release is oxytocin, is dopamine, is serotonin, is bliss
Mhm.
chemistry. And so just like when you go into the fall and the winter, as you're describing, like spring
Mhm.
naturally comes on the other side. There's these micro fallow periods. There's these micro deaths when we go into the darkness and the shame and the rage. And then on the other side is this spring of bliss chemistry. So there's these like
Mhm.
tiny internal
Mhm.
currents and cycles and these bigger ones. And I love this, that you like actually create a ceremony and a space, and you go in, you find these pieces of yourself that you thought were unlovable, and then you ask her how she's feeling, and then you let her speak through you and move through you. And then you
Yeah,
find that just being witnessed, just letting it be seen, is enough to alchemize it,
totally.
which is amazing. And I know you've experienced this, but like what I have found in teaching Ziva magic and in doing this on the retreats, it's like I'm framing this more as like embodied manifesting, right? Of like, what is it that
Mhm.
you desire? And then what's keeping you from being a match for this? Or like, is there a piece of you that's afraid that you might never get out of this people pleasing? You might never get out of this performing? Or is there a piece
Yeah.
of you that's pissed that it hasn't happened yet? And then we go in and we like actually feel and express that rage and that sorrow, but we dance it. And what I've found is that, yes, in the witnessing, trauma witnessed in community can be transmuted, but that also, at least for me and what I've seen in my students, is that it's like there ends up being a tiny little kernel of ecstasy in the expression of the rage. There ends up being like a
Mm.
tiny
Oh, yeah.
kernel of pleasure in the crying of the tears. And then
Mhm.
that pleasure becomes the alchemical force. And then we keep sprinkling the pleasure on to alchemize it. And then what I love that you just said is that then that moving of it, the alchemy, the transmuting, is the
Mhm.
thing that gives you the inspiration to go and take action, like go
Right.
and do something about it, not just keep it in your own sphere of self-healing.
Absolutely. Because here it's like, if you can see my hands right now, I'll try to explain for
Right
anyone
on
who's
your
just listening
forehead.
to the audio. So we can live like hovered up here, right? Where we're like a little bit numb, we're like sort of paying attention, but not really. We're going through the motions. We're usually like fine up here. But our range of feeling and our range of impact and our range of joy and our range of grief is pretty narrow, right? Because we're like on the surface. When we can deepen into like this full blown into the depths of darkness, into the, like, I call it like this, the sacred feminine cycle, this realness, this
What if
true
you called it the
expression.
sacred sewer?
Yes, now and forever. Why? Okay, we should change the title of the podcast too. Why isn't everyone hanging out
Going in the
in the
sacred
sacred
sewer.
Going into the sacred sewer. Not only does it have us meet our darkness, but it's like we've moved into a completely new house where we've expanded our capacity to feel literally everything.
Yes.
Right? And our capacity to move and be in action in a completely different way.
Yes.
And that means we can, like, start movements and be a present mom and be in collective care
And be a better lover.
and be better lovers and take care of our body. You know what I mean? It's just about when we can feel the darkness all the way, we expand our capacity for literally freaking everything. And it blows my mind every time, but it's really this process of going from like the narrow range to the big range. But you cannot, this is what I tell my people all the time. The heights of joy that you want to experience in this lifetime can only be accessed if you also feel the depths of despair. You cannot have one without the other. And I believe that we are meant to feel both.
Yes, amen. Like the darkness really does carve out space for more joy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you want to experience the full capacity of your ecstasy? Good luck if you spent the past 3 decades numbing your pain. Because that same muscle that's numbing the pain is the same muscle that will numb your pleasure. And so,
Absolutely.
but the good news here is that, like, the thing that we're both saying and shouting from the rooftops is the same muscle that you develop when you're willing to get into that sacred fucking sewer is the same muscle that can hold the capacity for the full range of your ecstasy, the full range of your joy. And I would argue that that is what the planet needs right now. Like, your suffering is not helping anyone else's suffering, and neither is your numbness, and neither is your inaction from overwhelm. But your capacity to hold space for your own pain and darkness will give you the capacity to hold space for someone else's pain and darkness. But that does not come from you suffering too.
No. And I would say, just so we're super clear, I would say that suffering is an avoidance of going all the way into the darkness.
Amen. Can you just say that again? Let's
so
really.
Suffering is actually an avoidance of going into the darkness. It is not going into the darkness.
That's huge,
because
Sarah.
I think that when we actually go all the way into the darkness in a real and sacred way, and we don't try to change it, we just sit with it and we feel it all the way.
Yes.
It is ecstatic and it is deeply healing because we have this built-in law of change and vibration. Everything is always changing. Nothing can stay the same. All things are always in movement. And so what I've experienced is that my suffering happens when I only want to touch something a little bit or I try to fix it. But like true healing actually happens when we dive into the sacred sewer and we just sit there and we feel it. And then magic happens.
Oh, it's so good. And this is the divine feminine, right? It's like the hero's journey is external. What can I change in the external world? The heroine's journey is what can I like shift in the internal realms? And to me, the parable of Persephone and Demeter. So, Layla and I went on this journey a few years ago where we went to the Plutonian cave at Eleusis in Greece, and we did mushrooms, which again, it's like this composting material, like going in and composting the darkness into light. And we just sat and we like laid in silence for like 2.5 hours. And I opened my eyes and the first thing I said out loud, which is a very high thing to say, but I was like, Layla, it's amazing with your eyes closed. And it's amazing with your eyes open. And that was like my high way of saying that, like, the darkness is just as beautiful as the light. Like, what if there's nothing to be afraid of in the sewer? What if there's actually nothing to fix? And if we can find the pieces that we thought were unlovable and actually love them, this is where the alchemical magic happens. Like, this is when we get to actually dance with the darkness.
I love that. Because the thing that happens for me when I go down into the sacred sewer, we're going to be using this term for the rest of our lives, by the way.
I'm so into it.
I love it. I'm so into it.
Toe bags.
Making sweatshirts, sacred sewer. When I go down and I actually sit with this inner archetype, she's such a fucking badass. Like, she is super weird and she's got some great ideas and she's like gnarly in the best way. You just need to like get to know it a little bit more. And so I've ended up sourcing so much of like my ideas and my power and my like edgy out of the box choices in my life from going into that sacred sewer.
Well, that's what you were saying in the beginning of our prayer of like the compost, right?
Yeah.
That we take all the scraps, we take all the trash, we take all the stuff that we thought was waste, the unlovable piece, the banana peel, the egg shells.
Yeah.
And then that becomes the compost that makes the garden even more beautiful, that makes the flowers even more colorful,
Yeah.
but not if we don't go through the process of mulching it, of like feeling it and letting it alchemize. Otherwise, you put it in the landfill and avoid it, and it turns into greenhouse gas and climate change.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about spiritual mulching.
Okay.
Okay. So that people really know how to do it.
Great.
Because I think it's important.
So if you have ever thought, I am ready for more out of life, more energy, better sleep, deeper human connection, or simply the ability to handle stress like a total boss, then Ziva is for you. So at Ziva, we combine modern science with ancient wisdom to create tools that actually work. Because stress is costing you much more than you realize. It can steal your focus, drain your energy, and keep you from showing up as the human that you know you're meant to be. That's why over 60,000 high performers, CEOs, athletes, parents have turned to Ziva. Our programs don't just teach you skills, they help you master your life. They help you embody your highest potential. So whether you're brand new to this or ready to take your life and your practice to the next level, the best place to start would be Ziva meditation. So in just 15 minutes a day for 15 days, you're gonna learn a practice that will remove stress from your body and transform the way you feel and function every single day. And right now, I'm gonna give you a gift, 15% off, which you can use at checkout by entering the code WHYTHIS. So all you need to do is go to zivameditation.com, find the course that is right for you, because I'm so excited to share these tools with you. I've dedicated my whole life to refining these practices and making them as fun, attractive, and accessible as possible. So go to zivameditation.com and enter the code WHYTHIS on the course that feels right for you, and I will see you inside.
So the thing that I think, first of all, I mean, you're hanging out with me and Emily. So we're going to both believe that doing something and making it sacred is really important. I do think that when you're in a container, it makes a difference. And the thing we have to do is we have to name it. So we have to basically say, this is a banana peel. This banana peel has been inside of me for decades. You know what I mean?
Give us like, what's like the analogy of like, what would be like an emotional banana peel?
This is my obsession with being liked.
Okay.
And wanting
I'm trying to think of what
popular.
mine is. What's my banana peel? Mine is like unworthiness that shows up as like, I have to work so hard in order to deserve abundance.
Ugh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we just name like, this is my banana peel.
This is my banana peel.
I've been carrying this around forever.
I've been carrying this around for generations.
Right. Generations. And I think what is helpful is to be like, okay, what is the gift of the banana peel? And, you know, the gift for me has been in really understanding how to love the parts of me that are unlovable, you know, because what is more important than that?
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's like, it's, you know, it's a daily practice, but what is the gift of your banana peel?
Well, I think I'm in the process of discovering it, to be very honest, because I think I've been like doing it until like 5 seconds ago.
Yeah, great.
Um,
Well, let's just do it. Let's discover it right now.
but I'm not kidding. Like, I think I was like approaching burnout and like before last month. And
Yeah.
like, by the way, burnout does not mean like adrenal fatigue, because like my body's been great. My nervous system has been great. Like the
Yeah.
meditation has regulated my body. But my understanding of burnout is like when you're not happy with the results of your actions. Like you're doing
Right.
actions and you don't like the results that you're getting. And I think that I was approaching that and I was getting like resentment, and it was showing up in like ways that were like really like I would consider unlovable, like the way I've been with my team and like the way I've been like in scarcity and contraction, and then I was just working more and like doing more, and like I'm literally, my computer is sitting on top of my book that I wrote called Stress Less, Accomplish More.
Yeah.
And I've just been like stressing more and accomplishing more. And so, but here's what's happening in real time is that I just took like a month-long trip, which was kind of work, but a lot of vacation and like a lot of just being and playing and being in nature and being in beauty and like not being productive and not working and like being like, oh, I'm still lovable and I'm still valuable and I'm still worthy. And as a matter of fact, this might be like me in my joy and bliss and slowness and softness actually like is the highest use of my energy and medicine right now. That like Emily doing 18 whatevers in the weeds is not my highest service.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, as I'm coming back and like even going into this big launch for Ziva Magic, I'm just like, I'm going to see how much pleasure I can pour over this whole thing. I'm going to see how good I can feel in every minute of every hour of every day of this launch. And it's working. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I think it's like I'm learning to see that I'm lovable even if I'm not producing.
Great.
That like I am worthy of receiving even if I'm not creating output. And I think that that is like healing, like generational. Like my mom started working when she was 9. My grandmother picked cotton with enslaved people. Like I come from like a lineage of like really hardworking, really poor women. And so there's something about like we are all valuable because we exist. Yeah, but I'm open to your feedback on that. I feel like I'm not. I feel like I could use some distillation.
Well, here's where I would look, and like you don't have to do this with the cameras on, you know. But
I mean, let's go.
I think the thing to look at is the part of you that feels like, why does she feel unworthy if she doesn't produce? What does she believe is true about herself? Like, what does she think is wrong with who she is, that she's like making up for something by performing and pushing hard and needing to have it all work out, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think this is like, I think there's deeper layers to go in the sewer, but the thing that's coming up right now, which might be just like one floor of the sewer, is, and this feels a little external, but that actually, it's almost like my life is like I'm getting away with something. That like, oh, like I get to teach meditation and manifesting for a living and like I get paid for this, that I should like have to like earn the ridiculousness of my life. And so I know there's a layer underneath that, but it feels like undeserving.
I would just like keep looking at what parts feel undeserving and why. And yeah, and like I have this one too, for sure. And the thing that I've been thinking about is, how can I be more in service, not through my business, because it's like, wow, I get to lead ceremony for a living. So lucky. I have extra energy. Let me use it. And that's been like helping like come into balance.
That's
with
good.
everything.
Like, how can I be in service in ways that are not my work, and just be in service like at my son's school or in my community or whatever, donating to the people who need it the most, or yeah, that feels really good.
Because a lot of us, we have extra energy. We don't always need to like put it into our business,
Hmm.
you know?
That actually, yeah, like a well-lived life is, your community, your spirit, your
Mhm.
family, your
Yeah,
body, like your legacy, all of that.
all of
I
that
think that speaks to like your bigger point of like that this healing is not meant to happen in just the micro, that it also wants to go out into the
into the
macro.
macro.
There was I got to speak at Gaia a few years ago, and I know my audience is probably sick of hearing me say this, but excuse me, it just keeps coming back. There was this native man there. His name was Doug Goodfeather. He was a Lakota elder, and he said that he believes that the intensity of the suffering on the planet is happening as a direct result of thousands of years of uncried tears. And
Oh,
I've just like, it just feels so true that like, as we get brave enough to go into the sewer, to dance with our darkness,
mm,
that not only do we liberate ourselves, not only do we alchemize more magic in our lives, but that we can help the collective and help our lineage in both directions.
mhm.
I'm curious what your feeling is about that.
Well, my feeling right now is yes, if we move it, if we like use that healing that we've done and go to a shelter, make art, donate money. Like, I think there's something about energy and sacredness in action
Mm-hmm.
that makes things like really land and makes the biggest difference.
I love that. So what
Yeah.
kind of things are you seeing in your community, or that you personally like, just to get people, get the wheels spinning, like get the creative juices flowing? Like how are people in your community like taking action and taking their new alchemized compost into the world?
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the women in my community, I should have asked her if I could say her name, but maybe we can give her some cred later. She started a progressive women's group at her church, and she gathered the women together and they do a project every month.
Mm,
It's just like it's local. There, she has one woman who's in charge of protests. She has another woman who's in charge of, direct service in the community. I have our videographer, Jacqueline, is right now raising a bunch of money for school supplies for
mm,
her kids in school. I think it's so beautiful to be hyper local.
mhm,
And because we can, I wonder if that's how we're meant to feel and touch things. We have other people in the community who are sponsoring families in Palestine. We have other people in the community who are doing work with animals. I have another woman in the council who goes to state parks and just cleans up and
mm,
spends a couple hours. She's getting parents and children to go with her. So it's just like, how can we
mhm.
be out in the
Yeah.
world? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I have a series of questions that I have people ask, because I think we all, just like we all have different astrological signs, like we all have our role that we're going to
Yeah.
play. And so the questions that I ask is like, what do you believe is the most pressing need of the time?
Mm,
And then how do your unique gifts best serve that need?
mm,
And then
beautiful.
which of those gifts do you want to use? Right? Because it's
Mm,
not about being a martyr. This is not about suffering. This is not about like who can suffer the most or give
yeah.
the most, even. It's like, these are the gifts that I love using. This is how it's specifically relevant to this particular need. And I
Mhm.
think this is the conscious design of happiness,
Mm,
where it's like then we become those little service animals, we're like, oh, look at me, I'm being of
yeah,
service.
so good.
The show is called Why Isn't Everyone Doing This? So I think I
Mm,
would ask you, like, why isn't everyone dancing with their darkness? And I
mhm.
have a hypothesis, and I
Yeah.
love slash a request. My hypothesis is that a lot of people are not dancing with their darkness is because we've been taught that this is not sacred, this is not
Right.
holy, that to be holy is just to go up to God,
Up.
this linear
Exactly.
ascension, transcendent path
Mhm.
up to the divine, which can be very masculine, and that this internal alchemical journey of feeling the feelings and connecting the heart, which is more feminine, has been seen not only as like not the way, but as bad. And so I'd
Yeah.
love for you to share like how the removal of the divine feminine has actually robbed us of this extraordinarily important piece of the healing puzzle, both individually and collectively.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a snapshot because what's great is that people can actually go back to our other episode and
Yeah,
get
it's
like
so
a
good, by the
deep
way. If you've
dive.
not listened to that episode, like go listen to it. It's amazing.
That was such a fun.
So fun.
It was
That
so
was
fun.
like it was like a key moment for us. I feel it was like
I
our
know.
second real date.
It was so great. I love it. And now we've been able to spend so much time together. It makes me so happy. Okay, so here's the deal. I believe, and because I've been taught this by my teachers and read it in books, that it wasn't just Jesus. It was Jesus and Mary Magdalene, the masculine and the feminine Christ. And they were equals. They held two whole expressions of the sacred. And this was happening during a time where the patriarchy was alive and well inside of the traditional Hebrew religion in Jerusalem. And people did not like that Jesus was like, it is not just me, it is also this, the sacred feminine. And Jesus represents, as you mentioned, the up and out, where Mary Magdalene represents the down and in. And in the process of going down and in, of dancing with the darkness, this is how I believe all people access their power and access their own inner truth and their own inner compass instead of being more easily controlled by the masses. Because we're basically all in this battle of, am I going to think for myself, or am I going to be a sheep and let other people think for me and manipulate my actions? And so it was very convenient to erase the part of the story that connects us to our truth and our power. And they were
I
successful.
just want to
And
pause on that for a minute because that feels
yeah,
really important. That this was not just plain old misogyny. This was not just plain old patriarchy. That this was actually like, oh, here's a key. The text of Mary Magdalene, which, as you said in the first podcast, the sacred feminine was not forgotten. It was violently removed.
or,
That these
yep,
passages were ripped out of the book. They were
mhm,
etched off of the tablets. They were buried
yep.
underground in Egypt. Not just plain old patriarchy, misogyny, but what you're saying now is that because these are the actual keys to our sovereignty and our true power.
Yes, because it was literally psychological warfare. So,
By the Catholic Church, by
yep, by the Catholic Church,
governments.
by the crusade. Yes, well, the Catholic Church and the government was the same
Mm-hmm.
back then. So this happened, mostly by the hands of the crusades, which then ended up taking over like all of the Middle East, all of Europe, and then through enslavement into Turtle Island, North America, into South America and Africa. So it was like this system, the same system that erased Mary Magdalene from the Bible was the same system that spread the oppressive patriarchy all over the globe. And so I believe like they really knew what they were doing to have
Mm-hmm.
this psychological impact while also inflicting physical trauma and death onto people. And we see this happening again today. This is why we study history. It's why it's so important to understand the history of the erasure of the sacred feminine, because it's happening again. And what is so fascinating, I have a BA in psychology. And so what happened for me was I started hearing about the stories of the sacred feminine, and I noticed my own psychology was changing. And I was like, weird. Why is it that I'm just learning about Mary Magdalene and I'm making different decisions? I'm showing up differently in my marriage. I'm feeling less anxious. I'm able to like meet shame with more courage and bravery. I'm able to dance with the darkness, just like we've been talking about. Why is that? And it's because metaphor and story are how human brains actually shift and change. It is
I mean, the
wild.
booming podcast industry is proof of that. Like, we want to
Totally.
sit around the campfire and tell stories.
Yep.
And also, we can't be something if we can't see something. So, we've never
Yep.
had pictures and myths and stories of the divine feminine, and certainly of like the Madonna and whore in one archetype. That's why I'm so
Mm-hmm.
connected to Isis, that she's like the
Yeah.
mother, the goddess of motherhood and sexuality, that
Yep.
like that these things can exist inside of the same archetype. So,
Yeah.
sorry, please continue.
No, absolutely. And it literally turns on different parts of our brain.
Mm.
And it's just wild. what can happen. And so as Mary Magdalene has been surfacing really since the 70s. In so many beautiful ways. Her book, the Book of Mary Magdalene, was found at a random like antique fair, not fair. What do we call it? Like
Cheek show?
antique show in Egypt, just in a stack of random books.
Like the
And
actual Gnostic Gospels of Mary Magdalene was found
yes,
at an
the
antique fair?
actual one. Yes.
Like
And
like a
like
garage sale.
luckily this guy stumbled upon it and was like, "Wait a second. This seems important." And I don't know the story from there, but basically, they figured out that it was the Book of Mary. And they
Wow.
also, it's embedded in the Gnostic Gospels. They call it the Nag Hammadi. There's like a few different names. And so it has surfaced and now it's been studied by so many incredible people. I say just like read everything you can on Mary Magdalene and also get to know her. I also believe that she's an entity. She's a spirit that we can invite into our life and
Mhm.
she can work with us and teach us and help us dance with the darkness. I channeled this really wild piece for Remember, which was this big ceremony that I did for 500 women back in April.
Yeah, let's
And
just pause on that for a minute, and I want to celebrate you because like this is
okay.
not just a ceremony. You guys, Sarah got a beautiful old church in Boston and filled it with 500 women from all around I'm sure the globe, but certainly the country, and held like an honoring of the divine feminine inside of a modern day church, like the total priestess witch that you are, and just really celebrating you.
Thank you. I mean, talk about dancing with the darkness. That was like a lot
What was
leading up to
dark
that.
about it? Like what darkness were you
Well,
dancing with? Your
so
own
here's the
or
thing.
the
I think this
or
is a good thread to bring into the darkness. And I'll weave it into what I was talking about with Mary Magdalene too, is that when you decide to do something big or in like full alignment with your soul, I believe the goddess is going to make sure you're really ready for it, which is not going to feel like a bunch of pep talks and a pat on the back and a fruit basket, right?
I really wish it
No,
was. The first time I ever did ayahuasca, I literally said this out loud. I was like, what if she just like gives me a high five? And that is not what happened.
not what happened. So, leading up to Remember, I had a series of really intense initiations that put me like smack dab in the middle of my sacred sewer. But this is what always happens to me. I still always try to convince myself that the way to prepare for something like that is to feel good. But it's like not actually true. The way to prepare for something like that, like a soul assignment, is to dance with the darkness. It's to meet the assignment. It's to go all the way down into the sacred sewer and sit with what's real. Because when I finally got the message that I needed to do that, I created the entire ceremony and wrote these 4 pieces, all from that place,
Mm.
all from like sitting in the stuff that was the most uncomfortable for me. And I led the ceremony in a really different way than I ever have, because I was called to be softer than I normally am
Mm.
for Remember. And it was so deeply uncomfortable for me because Emily, that I really like to pump people up. And it's so fun for me. And it is part of my medicine, but I was guided to being a little bit more gentle for that ceremony. And I'm
Mm.
so glad that I was, because the energy of the church, we were an Old South church in Boston. It's one of the oldest Christian congregations in our country.
Wow.
And it actually might be like the oldest, which is wild. And I wanted to be reverent to all of the deep and incredible work that has happened there, while also being able to hold the pain of the larger Christian system and and the pain that a lot of the women in the room have felt by being a part of a church. And if I wasn't that attuned, if I wasn't listening to the darkness, if I wasn't meeting it, I wouldn't have been equipped or like paying attention enough to know that what was needed. And if I didn't do that, I think we would have just missed the mark on that day. And I wrote this piece about Mary Magdalene about the 7 sins that the Bible says that Jesus healed in her. And it's like part of the dance that Salome does of the 7 veils. And she told it to me as her 7 wounds. And it was so beautiful. And so we had this whole part of the ceremony guided by Mary Magdalene, because her whole thing was, I had this whole part of my life where I didn't make the right, quote unquote, decisions. There was a lot of shame that she went through. They talk about her potentially being divorced, potentially being a prostitute. I also believe that she did sacred sex practices, but there's a lot that she carried. And we had this like whole moment where that's where our sacred nature comes from. It's from like being with our own wounds, because underneath them is the deepest compassion and the ability, when we can love ourselves so deeply, despite all of the stuff we feel like is completely unforgivable, we then have the capacity to love everybody in the world. And that's really what's needed right now.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Like, just since we learned through stories, I'll share that I'm coming out of like a 10-month, like pretty intense death portal and so much shadow work, and looking at pieces of myself that I really believed were unlovable, and like actions that I thought were unforgivable, and ways that I lied and stole and manipulated the truth and avoided hard conversations, and hilariously, like in direct relationship to this work, which we're going to be sharing on a future podcast. But it's like, talk about it. It's like, it feels like similar of like the eve of your initiation. Like, this has been a huge part of my initiation, of like looking at the parts of myself that I thought were unlovable and choosing to love them anyway. And it feels like exactly what you said, like looking at the planet right now, this like perfectly imperfect, like so like this like fucked up experience of being a human right now, and loving it as exactly perfect. That like, just like if you're in a relationship and you want to be in a better one, it doesn't just magically happen. You have to go through the agony of the breakup and the agony of being alone and the fear of never being in a relationship again, and all of the like unhealed inner child work before you are then an energetic match to be in a higher level relationship. And I feel like if we want to birth heaven on earth, if we want a sustainable reality for humans, we are going to have to go through this process of things being highlighted for deletion, and loving the parts of ourselves as a species and the planet that we deem unlovable. And like that starts within. And so, Sarah, I'm just so grateful to you. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing on the planet, for the spaces that you hold, for the ceremonies that you hold. Thank you for coming to the launch of Ziva Magic back in when we like did our launch party.
Oh my God, that was so fun.
Really?
Yeah. Can I just share about it for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what I love about, so I went to Emily's Ziva Magic launch party, and it was like, not really, we call it a party. It was like a transcendent experience. It was so incredible. First of all, I met the most amazing people. Everyone was so nice. You have such an amazing community. And the piece that I loved was I felt so held, not only like held lovingly, but also held to the fire. And I think that's what is so incredible about your medicine, is that you play full fucking out. You know what I mean? It's like there is no holding back in your body. I don't even know if you know what that feels like.
I really don't.
But when you're doing work like you do in Ziva Magic, all you want to do is hold back. You know what I mean? And like not touch it all the way, or not do it all the way, or not be like, move your body that way, or what are people going to think about me, and da-da-da-da-da. And you just hold the frequency of, I do not care what people think of me. I'm going like all in, because like, why not now? And when you're in that type of container, you just have no choice but to get like caught in the river. You just like move through it. And it's just the best.
Oh, Sarah,
And
thank you
I got
so
so much
much.
out of it.
I really appreciate you saying that. And I've never heard anyone say that before of like, I felt held, and not just held in safety, but held to the
To the
fire, because it's
fire.
both. Like, we have to feel safe in order for us to
Mhm.
go into that. But
Yeah.
also, like, it's go time. Like, it is go
Go
time.
time.
So
Yes.
I really appreciate that. And like, just to name out loud for those people that might be new to us, it's like, you are so exquisite at holding ceremony. And people, I've experienced this firsthand. And then also I know people say that like sitting with you in ceremony is like being on mushrooms without being on mushrooms. Like
Yeah.
it's like medicine work, but without medicine. And the fact that you do that sober and even without going into like deeply erotic spaces is such a
Mhm.
gift. And I know that you have lots of different containers, and we're going to put links in the show notes of how people can
Oh,
work with you,
thanks.
because I know they're going to fall in love with you and your work. But naming that, like, specifically dancing with your darkness, that like that is one of the things that we do inside of Ziva Magic. That yes,
Mhm.
we visualize, alchemize, and magnetize. So yes, we're getting clear on the vision of what's heaven on earth look like. But then we alchemize anything that's not a match. So if the
Mhm.
rage, the sorrow, like we actually dance it. And
Yeah.
then we find the pleasure in the expression of it. And then that pleasure becomes the magnetic force that allows the manifestations to come even faster. So
Mhm.
just
And it
naming that. And
makes it
yeah,
easier to touch it.
say it
Like
again.
when it makes it easier to touch it. Like the way you hold dancing with the darkness,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it so we don't feel as scared to go into it. And that's such a gift. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And I think that part of that comes from knowing that we have also inside of us that capacity for pleasure, that becomes not an anesthetic, but the alchemical fire that can transmute that pain. And like
Mhm.
you said, once it's witnessed, it immediately alchemizes almost on its own. But if you have a great playlist and a safe container and a double Aries holding your feet to the fire, it's a
Yeah,
lot more fun.
it's a lot more fun. It's so great.
So Sarah, where can people find you? Where can people work with you more deeply?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, there's two places to go. If you want to get into the work, if you go to sarahjenks.com/sacred life, I have this really great,
Not sacred sewer, sacred life.
not sacred sewer, sacred
Yet.
life. I have this really great guide. You do have to pay money for it, but it's like audios. It's the wisdom that we should have gotten from our mothers on the
Mm,
sacred feminine. If you don't want to spend any money, you can go to sarahjenks.com/sacred start. And that is a free morning ritual guide.
I
And the
love it.
morning ritual guide also comes in a sacred life. So it's just like whatever your budget is. Sacred life is 222. But
Okay, I
that's the
love
best
it.
place
Two,
to
two,
start.
two.
Like just like get in there, you know?
Yeah, get
And
in
like
there.
you
And
can
I can
follow me on
speak from
Instagram, but boring.
firsthand. Yeah, and do follow her on Instagram. Your Instagram feed is my favorite. It's so
Oh,
good.
thanks.
Truly, it's so good. And you can feel the authenticity of it. You can feel that it's born out of the compost from your
Well,
sacred
yeah,
sewer.
because like for so long I was like fakety McFakester. And I've had to learn how to like be real on the
Mm,
gram.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love you. I love your work. I'm so excited to like come and be in ritual with you on your land. And just, we said it in the last podcast, but like Sarah hosted me the first time we ever met in person. I took a train 3 hours to her house and she hosted me on my birthday, and she and her kids made a homemade birthday cake for me. Just a full stranger, just sleeping in your temple. And I just so grateful for our friendship ever
Me too.
since.
Well, because we knew this is what's so fun is like when you play with the sacred, you have like soul recognition and soul memory with
Mhm.
people. And I'm just so grateful to have that with you.
Truly, you're such a
Yeah.
gift to me, and you're such a gift to this planet. And thank you for your kind words about Ziva Magic. We're about to start this new container of folks, and I am just really excited, and I want to fan your flame, and I want to just keep like sharing more and more of this medicine to the world. So everyone go check out Sarah Jenks. If you've enjoyed this episode, maybe take a screenshot of it, post it on Instagram. You can tag me. I'm at Ziva Meditation. Sarah is at Sarah Jenks. Let us know what you learned. Like, what were some ahas for you? What is revealing inside of your sacred sewer? And we will see you next week on Why Isn't Everyone Doing This?
Bye, everybody.